Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr. Welcome to episode number 37 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr. It is October 21st, 2021, and my guest for this feature is Mark Stein, vocalist keyboardist of the classic rock band Vanilla Fudge. Vanilla Fudge is a four-piece band that was formed in 1967 in Long Island, New York. In addition to Stein, the original lineup of the band also included Tim Bogert on bass, Vince Martell on guitar, and Carmine Appice on drums. Vanilla Fudge quickly developed a reputation as a great live band and had a massive hit with the song You Keep Me Hangin On. During the late 60s, Vanilla Fudge was extremely influential to bands such as Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, and many more. In addition to Vanilla Fudge, Mark Stein also performed in the Tommy Bolin Band and the Alice Cooper Band. Mark Stein will be releasing his first solo record entitled There's a Light on November 26, 2021. His first single from the album, We Are One, is currently available. What follows is an exclusive interview with Mark Stein in which we discuss his new solo record and many aspects of his 50-year-plus career. So here he is, Mark Stein. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series. This is episode number 37, and we have the legendary Mark Stein, vocalist, keyboard player from the classic rock band Vanilla Fudge with us today. Mark, how you doing?
Doing really great, man. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark. I want to obviously talk about the great career that Vanilla Fudge has had. Very influential band in the late 60s. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other performers and other artists that you performed with over the years. And but first of all, before we start, I want to talk about your new solo record, which is coming out on November 26th, called There's a Light. Why don't we start off talking about that? And was this obviously? I'm assuming this was something that was you recorded during the pandemic lockdown. Is that correct?
Well, I wrote the new single just came out last week. It's called We Are One.
Right.
And that was written about 6 weeks after the pandemic was in full force in effect. You know, I was inspired to write the tune, and I'm proud of the song and the production. I think it came out really cool. It's getting a really great response out there, and it's the first single off my new album called it's called There's a Light, which will be coming out the end of November. And the song is really packed with songs that tie together with a message of how the world and the country used to be, the way I feel it is now, and how I hope it to be in the future. So we're excited about its release.
Yeah. This single that you released, you also have a video for it, which is pretty captivating for the single We Are One. Kind of really sums up, you know, what we've gone through over the last 18 months. And I think it's brilliantly done.
It started out when I wrote the song, and I felt like I had something really cool. But in a pandemic world, it was so hard to, get it recorded because everybody was in lockdown,
Yeah.
So I called my buddy Alan Hewitt, who's the keyboardist for the Moody Blues, and John Lodge. Great guy. He lives maybe 45 minutes from me in South Florida. So he invited me over to his house. He's got a really cool keyboard studio there. We laid down a click track, and I just laid down the piano track. So that's what I had to start with. And then he got like super busy over the next few days. He had some projects that came in, so I had to find another outlet. So I ran into a guy that became a good friend of mine. It's just a studio near me in Stewart called Blue Porch Media. Joey Z is the engineer there, and he invited me over and had the file sent over. So ultimately, I recorded all the vocals and all the string orchestrations over at his place. So we were really excited about it. And now I needed a bass and drums and guitar on it, So where am I going to go? So I called my buddy Stevie the Acoustic, so better known as Stevie D, at the Sound Spot in New Jersey, who's worked with me on some past Vanilla Fudge productions and mixes. So I asked him if he'd be into helping me, So he said, yeah, I sent him the files, and he really dug it. And he put guitar on it, he put bass on it, and he put a drum program on it. So the song only has two people on it, man, you know, but it was like an interesting way we approached the production, and we're both really proud of it, and that's what you're hearing.
Mm-hmm. Do you plan on promoting this record by doing any solo dates?
Well, my first promotion on it is going to be in January in Illinois. I'm going to be the featured artist on a show called World Stage, which is like very cool. Once a year it happens. Jim Peterick, who co-wrote Eye of the Tiger and the big song Vehicle for Ides of March, has a show every year, and he invites all these, you know, classic rock artists and has them featured. He's got a great band. He's got great singers. So I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to do some Fudge songs with the band, and I'm going to perform We Are One with the band and the singers, and I'll probably sit in on a verse of Eye of the Tiger to close the show. So that's going to be like my first solo promotion there.
Oh,
and we'll see how it flies, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now you're also touring with Vanilla Fudge, and as we mentioned previously before the interview started, you will be playing in the Buffalo area in November. How long does that tour go for? Are you just doing a few dates for that, or are you guys doing a whole run of shows?
Well, I actually leave Saturday. We have 5 shows, October 23rd through the end of the month. Then we have a break, and then we have a bunch of shows up by you, like you were just saying. So it'll be like a second leg, and we're doing the Buffalo show, and I think we got a couple. We're playing with Robbie Krieger from the Doors in New York City at Sony Hall, 15th and 16th of November. And there's a few other dates. If you check vanillafudge.com, you can see it.
Now, is Robbie going to actually be playing with the band, or is he like an opening act?
Oh, we're the opening act. We're going to be supporting Robbie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. He's from the Doors, you know, and
yeah, but you're Vanilla Fudge, man. You've influenced so
look,
many
man,
records.
You know, that's true, but that's the way it played out. We have no problem with that. I just spoke to Robbie the other day. He's a great friend of mine. We've known each other for many, many, many moons, and he's got some great solo stuff out, and he's got a great band, and he probably does a mixture of Doors songs and some of his own stuff, but hopefully we'll end up jamming together, because we've done that in the past, because we toured back in 05 with the Doors of the 21st Century, which was really cool. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
So see how that plays out.
Yeah, one of the amazing things about Vanilla Fudge is all the bands that you performed with, either having the bands open for you or co-headlining dates you played. I want to just go through the list of some of those bands, and if you could just tell me, you know, what comes to mind when you hear these bands' names. Like, for instance, Led Zeppelin opened for you guys in 1968. What were those shows like?
They were amazing. This was a very young band. Jimmy Page just left the Yardbirds, and he had an idea to put this heavy rock blues band together. They came to the United States with Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham, who were unknowns at the time, and they signed with Atlantic Records, and we were basically label mates. And you know, I would sit with my agent probably a month or so before we went out on tour. And I remember they played us some of the tracks from the first Zeppelin album, and I was really knocked out. You know, I knew this was going to be a successful group. So they opened for Vanilla Fudge on December 28th in Denver, 1968. Boy, we're going back a long time. So you know, they took them a while to get their stage legs together, but I could see before you knew it that they were evolving into something incredible. Their live stage show was so filled with excitement and passion, and before you knew it, they became the biggest rock band in the world. But I saw it all evolve, and we became really friends in the early days, and I think we had some influence on them somehow, especially in the live shows back in those days. So that's a good one to keep in my back pocket, you know.
Yeah, and how many people can say that Led Zeppelin opened for them?
Not many. Not many at all.
How did Led Zeppelin go over on those gigs? Was the audience like, you know, did the audience get it right away, or was it kind of like, you know, just...
you know what? They after about 2 or 3 shows, they started getting it, and once they started getting it, Zeppelin started getting it more and more, and they became so good so fast that there was, like I said, there were just, if anybody saw Led Zeppelin in those days when they were at the peak, 68, 69. They were absolutely amazing. Okay. Jimmy Page was phenomenal. The way he looked, the violin bow, the drama Robert played was incredible. John Paul Jones was a great bass player and keyboard player. He was like the silent dude in the back that was fantastic with all the orchestrations in the bottom end. And of course, Bonzo, became, many say, is the greatest rock drummer ever, But yeah, they were a piece of work.
Yeah. And one of the other legendary artists that you played with during that time was Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we opened for Jimi Hendrix in 1968 as well. Well, Zeppelin opened for us, but we opened for Hendrix, it was sometime in 68. And we did about 15 shows, and that was a pretty amazing time. And I got to know Jimmy pretty well, and Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding. They were all super cool guys. We used to hang out before shows, after shows. And, it's just really strange that they're all, gone now, half a century later. But I can remember one instance hanging out with Mitch and Noel in Phoenix. And Jimmy came strolling into the hotel with a couple of acetates under his arm. And it was the album Electric Ladyland. And there was a record player in the room. And he played it for me, And it was an acetate, which was actually a demo that was, before the album came out. So I heard Electric Ladyland before it was actually unleashed on the world. And that was a pretty amazing night, So great memories.
Yeah, but what was Jimi Hendrix like off stage?
Very laid back guy, very, very mellow. He liked to laugh and he loved to jam a lot. And he was a cool guy, man. He was just incredible. He made the most amazing records, his records stand up today, just fantastic, so creative. The lyrics, and Mitch Mitchell was still one of my favorite drummers. And Noel, who hated playing bass, I have to tell you, he was really originally a guitar player. And he just somehow got the role playing bass. He was never really happy, he used to tell me, And he left the Hendrix at one point and started his own band called Fat Mattress. I don't know how much success he had with it, but anyway, man, those were the days back then,
Yeah, absolutely. I would do anything to go back and see some of those shows. Now, what kind of venues were you playing? First of all, on when Zeppelin was open for you, were you playing like theaters or?
Well, we were playing coliseums.
Oh, wow.
We were playing civic centers. It was a combination of all of those, really big, coliseums and civic centers and theaters. Yeah.
Another band that you guys, I think, co-headlined with was the band Cream.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we didn't get on too great together, but yeah, we played a couple of shows with Cream in Texas, I remember. And, I had a little bit of a row with Ginger Baker, but that's okay. I think he had some resistance with a lot of people in those days, but God rest his soul. He was a great drummer. He influenced a lot of people after him. Eric Clapton was a very mellow guy. Jack Bruce was an intense character too. He was a great singer, hell of a bass player. And when I listen to Cream now in retrospect, they were terrific, man. Just a great trio, great songs, and one of the first, great jam bands.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now, the history of Vanilla Fudge is interesting in that you guys really only were around for like 3 years. You released your first record in 1967 and broke up in 1970. But right. you accomplished so much in that time span. If you think about it, I mean, in retrospect, I can't think of any band that has, currently has accomplished that much in that short period of time.
Yeah, well, we came out, the late 60s was just like a glorious time to be in the business, when that first album started playing all over underground radio, FM radio, if it wasn't for the advent of that, we probably never got heard with these long symphonic arrangements, but, they made themselves known. They played the heck out of us. And again, we were there with all the greats, and it was very, very cool, man. Playing the Fillmore and the Avalon Ballroom and just all those venues back in those days with even the Fifth Dimension and Sonny and Cher And Alice Cooper actually opened for us once before he became famous. Canned Heat. I mean, the list goes on and on, you know. So we're all part of that whole rock history thing.
Yeah, it's also interesting how the very first record that you put out, which was very successful, pretty much right out of the box, was just a record of covers and your unique interpretations of those songs.
Well, that's what we did. We reimagined other people's songs. That was the style of the Long Island sound back in the late 60s, which really was initiated by a band called the Vagrants. That's the first band I saw, you know, in Long Island. They were tremendous. And Leslie West was in that band, the late, great Leslie, great guitarist. So that had a heavy influence on Fudge and a lot of arrangements I came up with, you know, for the band in those early days. We also loved the Rascals too. With Felix Cavallari was, you know, one of my main mentors on the Hammond organ early on when I was 18 years old. So it was kind of like the combination of the blue-eyed soul of the Rascals and the drama of the Vagrants, which you know, morphed into Vanilla Fudge. So, you know, nobody was really writing songs in those days. This sound came out and it was so different that it took the business and the world by storm.
Yeah.
The album was like in the top 5 around the world before you knew it. So pretty unique experience for a 19, 20-year-old.
Yeah. What caused, or what were some of the reasons that the band broke up?
Well, probably one of the reasons that we toured so much, I think we never really took breaks from each other. So I guess we kind of got on each other's nerves a little bit in those days, you know. When you're young and to have first fame, it's like very difficult to handle first fame, and like an explosion of egos. And you know, Carmine and Timmy wanted to go, you know, in a direction, you know, because they became such a powerful rhythm section. And I kind of wanted to get into a different vibe with more Fudge stuff and songwriting. And yeah, we just lost that creative love for each other in those days. It came back later. We reformed several times, you know, over the next few decades. But you know, they went on to form Cactus and BBA, Beck, Bogert, and Appice, and I went on to play with Tommy Bolin and Dave Mason and Alice Cooper, and everybody went their own ways. And you know, Vinny did a solo record, and we all kind of came back together eventually again, and we re-recorded, we toured again over the years, and here we are half a century later. We're still playing without the late great Tim Bogert, of course, who passed in January. So here we are.
Yeah. Now I want to talk about some of the other artists that you performed with after Vanilla Fudge. You said Tommy Bolin band. What was that like? I mean, Tommy Bolin was one of those artists that was like a shooting star. I mean, you know, died very young, and you know, had a lot of potential left.
He was a shooting star. He was probably the most exciting, popular guitarist to come out of that era in the mid '70s. And at the time, I wasn't touring. I was off the road. I was just hanging and writing tunes. And you know, when I heard he was putting the band together, I said, you know what, man, I gotta get back on stage. And I heard the Teaser album, and he was so popular being in Deep Purple, and I heard he was leaving and starting a band. And I was actually starting to form my own solo band at the time. And Reggie McBride, who played with Stevie Wonder, a great bass player, went down to play with him in SIR in LA. He got the gig, and I said, Reggie, tell Tommy I'm interested, man. I'd really like to, you know, come down and play. And he did, and Tommy invited me down, and it was like magical. And that's why I got the gig with Tommy. And then that's when I met Narada Michael Walden, who was fresh out of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, probably one, you know, a great drummer, creative dude, you know, and Norma Jean Bell from Frank Zappa, great sax player and, you know, and singer. And that was the initial lineup of the first Tommy Bolin band. So that was a real trip. There was a lot of excitement around that. A lot of fusion rock dudes used to come and see us, like Jan Hammer and, you know, what have you, Jeff Beck and John McLaughlin in those days. So it was a pretty interesting trip.
Yeah. How long were you with the Tommy Bolin band?
Well, it was very short-lived. Yeah, as you said, you know, Tommy passed when he was 25 on the road. I had left the band just before that because things were getting pretty crazy. And I don't know, maybe I saw it coming, and I wasn't, you know, it was just too much going on at that time, and I decided to part ways before that last tour. And ultimately, he had lost his life in Miami that year. I guess it was '76.
Wow, and you said it wasn't really that much of a surprise. I mean, you could kind of see the writing on the wall.
Well, yeah, I kind of started writing on the wall, but when I found out that he had died, you know, it was it was an incredibly sad situation. I mean, it was because, you know, underneath those demons, he was such a beautiful guy. You know, he was really a great guy, and his parents were having a hard time. He was having a hard time with royalty. So me and my wife, Patty, you know, we put on a show for Tommy's parents at the Roxy in LA at that time. And I had invited George Duke with his band to come down, and Carmine, and, you know, Peter Banks from Yes, and Glenn Hughes, and myself. And there was a whole bunch of people who came down, and we sold the place out. It was a benefit for Tommy and his parents, and we raised a whole bunch of money that night. And that was a great event. And we sent a check, and it really helped them through some difficult times. So I'm really happy you went and did that.
Wow. No. And one of the other artists that you mentioned you worked with was Alice Cooper. That was what, 1978 to 79 that you worked with?
Actually, it was back in '77. I had joined the Welcome to My Nightmare show, which was the Southern Hemisphere, or Australia and New Zealand. And yeah, I mean, it was really cool to be a part of it, because at that time that was the biggest selling and grossing tour in those days in the Southern Hemisphere. And we were playing, you know, all the huge coliseums and arenas, and they were all sold out. And it was quite a visual show. That was a pretty crazy experience.
Mm-hmm. And why did you decide to leave the Alice Cooper band?
Well, it wasn't something I decided, because I was promised, in retrospect, I was promised to continue with them in the States. And for some reason, they decided to get another keyboard player. And, you know, to be quite honest, Vanilla Fudge never toured down there. So when I got down to Australia, the press was, you know, kind of all over me, you know, and I was kind of, you know, it was kind of strange, you know, because Alice was the cat, you know, and there was no problem there. But I think some of the band members weren't real happy about that. And I think that might have had something to do from what I heard from some other musicians. So I think that's probably one of the reasons it didn't happen going forward.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's cool. I got to play in that show at one time.
Yeah. How was Alice back then? During that time, from what I understand, he was dealing with issues with drugs and alcohol at the time.
He was having a really hard time back in those days, but he got through the shows, and we kind of helped him through it. But you know, subsequent to that, the man found a way to get rid of all his demons, and he became amazing, better than he ever was. Fast forward today, he's one of the greatest and nicest guys in the business, and he's still an amazing performer, and he's a good friend, and I'm really happy for him. I've run into him several times over the years at different situations, and you know, every time I see him, he always has time for me. So hats off to Alice Cooper, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really amazing when you look at the list of all the musicians that you've performed with or groups that have opened for you. I mean, just like a who's who of like rock royalty. One of the musicians that kind of are one of the artists that surprised me was that you worked with. It was Michael Jackson. What did you do with Michael Jackson?
Well, that's an interesting story. One night I was recording an album with Dave Mason in LA at a place called Hollywood Sound. So we were taking a break, and I walked out into the lobby, and I see Michael Jackson leaning up against the soda machine. And I was like, wow, I was taken back. The Jacksons were down the hall, you know, doing a project. So Off the Wall was a multi-platinum record at the time. This was just before Thriller. And we had a track called Save Me that was on this album that we were doing. It had the same feel, the same groove as some of the tracks on Off the Wall. I said, Michael, why don't you come in the studio, and I'd like you to check out this track we're doing. And he was so cool. He followed me in. We shut the door. I told the engineer to put the track up. You know, he starts pumping it through the speakers real loud, and Michael starts snapping his fingers. He's dancing around the console. I said, dude, why don't you go out in the studio, man? There's a mic out there. Put the headphones on. Why don't you scat on this song, man? And he did. He went out there, put the phones on. We ran the track, and in one take, he completely blew us away. And it's a track called "Save Me." It was such an amazing night for the ages for me and everybody involved, man. So that's how that happened, man. It was so cool. And listening to that track now, it just brings it back, and it's really a cool track. And the organ I put on there was real funky too, man. That was really cool. So it's Michael Jackson and Dave Mason, Mark Stein. They're all singing on the same song, man. So it's nice to have that in my record book.
Yeah. So everybody watching this right now, make sure after this interview you listen to that song and crank it up.
Yeah, man. Save Me.
Okay. You a few years back you wrote a book called Keep Me Hanging On. What was that experience like writing a book? And how do you feel about the response that you received after the book was released?
Yeah. I mean, it's like my friends and my wife and fans they were prodding me to always write a book. Years went by. Yeah. I'm going to do it. I started it, but I just couldn't. It's so hard to start a book and really finish it. Anybody that knows, it's really an arduous, long time to do it. And so I never got to it. One day I got this book called A Patriot's History of the United States in my mailroom. And I said, what is this big thing? I opened it up and it said, to Mark, one of my heroes. I've been a fan of yours and Vanilla Fudge all my life, by Larry Schweikart, who was the author. And I kind of, went online and checked him out. I went, bingo, maybe I'll send him an email and maybe he'd be interested in collaborating on a book with me, because he's had so many books out. So I did it, and he was excited to do it. And that's how that happened. And he told me to write, a whole synopsis and an overview of where I wanted it to go. So I did that. I locked myself up for a couple of weeks, and I sent everything to him, and he really liked it. And he started, putting his thing to it. We went back and forth over the next 3 years, and what was really cool is we got some great interviews from Billy Joel and Sid Bernstein, the man that brought the Beatles to America. Robbie Krieger and the Doors, Dave Mason, Glenn Hughes, the list goes on and on. So there's some really cool interviews in there, and it's like over 5 decades of rock history. It's about the Vietnam War, how rock and roll, played back and forth, how Vanilla Fudge, its place had influence on progressive rock. It's got some behind the scenes stories that it's got some great reviews on it. And we sell it, at all the shows. And again, you can get it at mark-stein.com if you want a numbered signed one, or you can go to Amazon to get it.
Okay. Are you going to be selling those at the shows that you're going out on in October and November?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So I can buy one in Buffalo.
You can.
All right. I can't wait. Make sure you mark me down for one of those. I'll definitely get
one. All righty, buddy.
Sounds good. Do you think Vanilla Fudge will ever release another full-length record?
That's a good question. I don't know, man. I never say never, but I guess time will tell. I'm kind of busy with my solo project and career, and actually, we do have a new track out. Our take on "Stoppin' the Name of Love," another Motown Supreme song that I had put together back in 19, and brought it to the band, the template for an arrangement, and we went into the studio in the fall of 19, and the pandemic hit, so everything was on hold. Fast forward 2 years later, Carmine got the tracks. He put a new drum track, in a drum studio at home. He went to LA. He got Tim Bogert to play on it. This was the last time Timmy ever played on anything before he passed. So we wanted him on it. So it would be the last track that'd be original, all 4 members on. So it came out pretty cool. And I think Fudge fans are digging it. And if you haven't heard it, you should check it out.
Yeah.
Stoppin' the Name of Love.
Yep, it's on Spotify. It's getting a ton of hits. Definitely recommend that anybody watching this check that song out, and it's going to be put it right on top of your playlist because it's a great rendition of that classic song.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My last question I have for you, Mark, and I'm sure you get this question a lot, but it just amazes me that Vanilla Fudge hasn't been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, all 4 of you were so influential. I mean, you look at anybody like John Lord from Deep Purple like cites you as one of his biggest influences. John Bonham said Carmine was one of his biggest influences. I mean, it's just incredible that that the band isn't in the Hall of Fame. I know there's a lot of bands that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but Vanilla Fudge, come on, man. I mean,
I
it's
don't get it
crazy.
either. I don't get it either, man. We've been lobbying for the last decade to our fans, sending emails, and I don't understand it because, I mean, it's really, I don't think it should be about how many top 10 singles you had. I think really it's the Hall of Fame. It's should be about your influences, because Vanilla Fudge heavily influenced Deep Purple. In the beginning of their career, they were called the English Vanilla Fudge. And like you said, John Lord, who was a mate, he was a friend of mine, God rest his soul. He was supposed to have interviewed for my book, but he got sick right around that time. And man, he passed. That was unreal. Bands like Uriah Heep, Don Hensley, the keyboard player, Mick Box, the original guitar player. He's a good friend. We correspond all the time. I don't think they're in either, are they? On bands like Yes, we influenced, even Styx, and I mean it goes on and on. So I don't know why, man. Only they know. Only they can answer that question. But hopefully, before it's all said and done, we'll get some kind of mention, some kind of nomination.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like I said, there's bands that have like 1 or 2 records out there, were fairly successful, but didn't influence like even like a 1/10 of the amount of musicians that you guys influenced.
Yeah, well, again, I really don't know. Only they know that. So
yeah. All right. Well, Mark, I want to thank you again for your time. It was great interviewing you, and everyone watching this again, check out the new single, Mark's new single he has out, and Vanilla Fudge.
We Are One.
We Are One. Check out the video. The video is outstanding. Very profound, very reflective of the times. And Vanilla Fudge is coming to your town. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be a great show.
Man, it was great talking to you, man.
Thank you,
You're
Mark.
the man.
All right. No, you're the man.
I'll see you on the road.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks again, Mark.
All right. Looking forward.
All right. See you. Bye.
Bye.